Hey bookworms, it's Jade from Bedtime Bookworm and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm here to bring you my November reading wrap-up. As you might be able to tell by the sound of my voice, I have a cold right now, but I could not put off filming this any longer. It's already November 9th and I just needed to get it done, so here we are. I was really busy last month with NaNoWirMo, so I didn't end up doing a reading vlog style wrap up this month. I was just too busy filming vlog clips for my NaNoWirMo vlog and I didn't do any reading vlog clips. Also, because of NaNoWirMo, I only read 4 books last month, but I'm totally happy with that. I'm actually surprised that I read 4 books. Granted, one of these I finished on the second day of the month, so I kind of only read 3 books. Out of those 4 books, I had 2 books that were 4 stars and 2 books that were 5 stars, so even though quantity-wise I didn't read a lot, quality-wise it was a really good reading month. Also, 2 of the books that I read were actually memoirs, and that was my semi-attempt at participating in Nonfiction November, and only one of the books that I read last month was a book in a series. I usually go over the books that I read in the order that I read them. So the first book that I finished in November was Crossroads of Twilight by Robert Jordan, which is the 10th book in the Wheel of Time series. This was the Watt-along book for October. The live show for this book wasn't until November 3rd or so. I ended up finishing this the day before the live show on November 2nd, so I included it here in my November wrap-up, even though I read the majority of it in October. So I read Crossroads of Twilight in all 3 formats. I read it as an audiobook, an ebook, and as a paperback, all of which I own. I ended up giving Crossroads of Twilight 4 out of 5 stars. It definitely had some slow sections and a few parts where I was bored, but the second half of it actually picked up quite a bit, and surprisingly it ended on a cliffhanger, which has me really antsy to read the next book in the series. Most of Robert Jordan's books haven't been ending on cliffhangers, not like direct cliffhangers. I mean, there were always questions left unanswered, but this was like a legit cliffhanger, so that definitely kind of surprised me. But yeah, like a lot of these middle books in this series, there were good parts, there were bad parts. Well, I don't want to say good parts and bad parts. There were slow parts and there were not slow parts, which brought the rating down to a 4 stars, but I still really enjoyed my time with these characters, as I always do. We have, of course, already done this live show back at the beginning of November, and it was here on my channel, and I'll link it for you in case you want to check it out. The next book that I read in the month of November was Born a Crime by Trevor Noah, which I gave 5 out of 5 stars. I read this for my work book club. It's a book that I had had my eye on for a while, so I was really excited when it was selected as the book club book, and it was also selected for the November book club book, which goes perfectly with Nonfiction November. I listened to this on audiobook, which I bought from Audible, and I definitely recommend this on audiobook because, of course, Trevor Noah narrates it himself, and he is just a treat to listen to. This memoir definitely focuses on his childhood and teenage years and not so much on like after he got famous. Even though Trevor Noah is fairly young, he has led an incredible life and is so interesting and of course funny. I was already a fan of his TV show, so maybe I'm a little biased going into this book, but I thought it was fantastic. He's had some really terrible things happen to him, but he has such a funny perspective on his life, and he was always able to give a meaning to these little anecdotes of things that had happened to him that were so profound, but the stories were so funny at the same time. And this book definitely gave us a lot to talk about during our book club, so I definitely recommend it as a book club book. I love the way Trevor Noah talked about his mother and how she was just such a strong woman, and she definitely had a lot to do with the way that he turned out. While I know what apartheid is and I learned about it in school, I've never learned about it from the perspective of someone who's lived it. And even when I learned about it, it felt like something that had happened so long ago, even though it wasn't that long ago, but I learned about it in my history class. To hear about it from someone who lived it and from someone who's not that much older than me really put a different perspective on it. I love this memoir and I totally recommend it, especially if you are a Trevor Noah fan already. The next book that I finished in the month of November was Sawkill Girls by Clare Legrand. I listened to this on audiobook as well as read it as an ebook, both of which I got from my library. I ended up giving Sawkill Girls 4 out of 5 stars, so I really enjoyed it. It just wasn't quite enough to get me to 5 stars. I think if I was doing half stars, it would have been 4.5, but round down to 4. This is what I would call an urban fantasy because it's set in what seems to be our world on a fictional island, and there are magic and monsters involved. I had heard a lot about Clare Legrand recently, both from the buzz about this book, Sawkill Girls, but also from Furyborn, which she released earlier this year in January. And a couple of booktubers that I follow and am friends with have said that Clare Legrand has become one of their favorite authors, and so I definitely wanted to try one of her books. And I ended up choosing Sawkill Girls over Furyborn just because I'm trying to avoid starting a new series, and Sawkill Girls is a standalone. It's also a spooky book, and in November I was still in the mood for spooky books. I'm actually still in the mood for spooky books in December as well. I really love Sawkill Girls for its uniqueness. I don't think I've ever read a book quite like this. It was really atmospheric, and while it didn't scare me, I personally don't get easily scared, but it definitely had spooky vibes, and I loved that. The story is told from 2 or 3 different perspectives. They're all female characters in the story. This book also has a lot of feminist vibes going on, which was fantastic, and there's LGBTQ rep. There's like an on-page female-female romance, and it was just a lot of fun. I really enjoyed the plot and the mystery that was involved and seeing how it all unfolded and tied up. It was great. It was just missing a little something for me to give it 5 stars. If you've been considering reading Sawkill Girls and have been interested because of the hype, I'd say the hype is real and give it a try. And then the last book that I finished reading in the month of November was The Glass Castle by Jeannette Walls. This was a buddy read that I did with Katie from Girl About Library, who I've talked about before, and she's awesome, so definitely go check out her channel. I'll link it down in the description box. This was my second memoir of the month to go along with Nonfiction November, and I ended up giving this 5 out of 5 stars, so both memoirs that I read this month I gave 5 stars, and I loved. That makes me think I should read more memoirs. I read this in ebook and audiobook format, both of which I got from my library. I definitely recommend the audiobook because Jeannette Walls narrates it herself, and I think it's always great to hear memoirs from the author's perspective. This book was fascinating. I've had my eye on it for quite a while, basically since I saw the trailer for the movie, which I haven't seen the movie yet. I was like waiting to read the book first. And then Katie had also said this was like one of her favorite books that she had read previously, so it was a reread for her, and she enjoyed it just as much the second time around. Jeannette Walls grew up in a very poor family and had a pretty non-conventional life, and that's what this book is about. It's about her childhood and how she got to where she is now. Both of her parents were really smart, but also seemed to be a little selfish and had some issues with addiction and things. This book definitely needs some content warnings. So content warnings for alcoholism, sexual abuse, I don't know, living in poverty. I think that's all of them. As someone who potentially wants to be a parent one day, it was really hard for me to read some of the things that happened to Jeannette and some of the things that she had to do. I mean, her and her brother and sister, at many times in their life, had to provide for themselves while going to school, and it was just mind-blowing to see some of the situations they went through. But at the same time, there were moments where her parents were portrayed in a really relatable way, in the fact that they had these ideals that they were trying to live by, but they were just taking those ideals a little bit too far sometimes. This book was just fascinating, and I absolutely loved it. By the end of it, it brought me to tears. I was like ugly cry sobbing. Actually, Trevor Noah's book made me ugly cry as well. But yeah, I absolutely love this book. I definitely want to try to read more of Jeannette Walls. She has, I think, at least 2 other books out. One is another memoir style, but it's about her grandmother, and then she has a fiction book, which I actually hauled from a library book sale recently. So I'm looking forward to reading those. Alright guys, those are all 4 books that I read in the month of November. If you guys have read any of those books or have any thoughts or comments, leave them down in the comment section for me. If you like this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel for more bookish content. That is all I have for now. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, bookworms, keep reading. Bye. Quality-wise, was Crossroads of Twilight. Oh god, I gotta sneeze. It was definitely, it was really, what's that word? Basically from, bye.